Welcome to my channel.
And this is English Podcast Station.
All right, let's do a deep dive into Girl Meets Boy by Derek Strange. You know, we're going to really unpack how Donna and Mark, how they kind of navigate all those first encounters, right? All that awkwardness and those missed connections. And maybe even a little bit of meddling from Mark's brother.
It's so fascinating how even a simple young adult novel, right, can offer like real insights into human behavior, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And we've got a lot to work with here. We've got the novel itself, and then we've got some analysis and summaries just to help us really kind of uncover those hidden gems, right? So let's just jump right in. We start off on a boat, actually, from Portsmouth to Santander. And this is where Donna first spots Mark.
The way she describes him is really interesting. She's so focused on those visual details, you know, like she says, tall, quiet boy in a blue and white shirt. And it really highlights how strong those first impressions can be, especially when it comes to attraction, you know?
And her reaction, I mean, come on, wow. He's lovely, she's smitten. But Mark's perspective, it's a little different.
Yeah, he finds Donna attractive too. He even thinks to himself like, she's nice. But then he adds this really key phrase. He says, I'm really shy and I'm not very good with girls. It sets up this really interesting like tension, right, between their mutual attraction and his own internal struggle.
It's like he's already kind of anticipating all those hurdles, you know, those awkward moments that can come with just putting yourself out there, right?
Exactly. And honestly, that fear of rejection is so universal. It's something so many people can relate to. You know, it often stems from a deep-seated just need to belong, right? Yeah. That vulnerability that we all experience when we're trying to connect with others.
And this is where I think the setting of the boat really adds another layer, doesn't it?
Yeah, being in a confined space, it can actually amplify those feelings of awkwardness, you know?
Yeah.
You're just constantly aware of the other person. And it can be harder to escape those potential interactions, especially if things get a little uncomfortable.
Right. And in this case, it leads to this huge misunderstanding at the disco.
Oh, tell me about it. Donna accidentally dances with Mark's brother, Dave. Just because they look so much alike.
Oh, poor Donna. She spends the whole night, you know, thinking about the wrong brother, you know, just wishing she could rewind time. And Mark, on the other hand, he sees them together and just retreats even further into himself.
It's classic, isn't it? A classic example of how miscommunication and those missed opportunities can lead to so much regret, you know, especially in those early stages of attraction. Has that ever happened to you? You ever experienced something similar? Like that feeling of, what if, you know, when you let a chance slip away?
Oh, I think we've all been there at some point. But thankfully, the story doesn't end there. Our setting shifts. We move from the boat to this charming town square in Comillas, Spain. It's a much more open environment, more relaxed, you know, perfect for a second chance encounter. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. The environment plays such a huge role in shaping our interactions. Some settings just naturally encourage, you know, more open communication, more spontaneity. It's like the atmosphere itself gives you permission to be a little bolder.
And that's exactly what happens. Donna and Mark, they lock eyes across the square, and this time, Mark, he walks right over and asks her to dance.
It makes you wonder, though, what prompted that shift in his behavior, you know?
Well, we know he's been drawn to Donna from the start, right? But it seems like something just finally clicks for him.
Maybe it's the combination of the relaxed setting, right? And seeing Donna again. Maybe that gives him that extra push. Or maybe it's just a sudden surge of confidence, like, you know, realizing he has nothing to lose by just taking a chance.
And let's not forget, right, the power of a little sibling intervention. Turns out, Dave, the brother Donna mistakenly danced with. He planned the whole thing.
He intentionally danced with Donna just to make Mark move. Can you believe it? What a strategy.
Right. Dave's actions, while, you know, seemingly kind of mischievous, they actually serve as this catalyst for Mark to overcome his shyness. It highlights how sometimes even those seemingly negative events, you know, they can have these positive unintended consequences.
Absolutely. And it speaks to how, you know, our relationships can just influence our actions and our decisions in such complex ways.
This is where things get really interesting. So we'll dive deeper into this in the next part. Stay tuned. So we left off with Mark finally kind of mustering up the courage to ask Donna to dance.
Yeah, it's such a pivotal moment in the story, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. It's like watching him finally break free from all those limitations, those self-imposed limitations.
Yeah, it really makes you think, like, how often do we hold ourselves back?
Yeah.
You know, because of fear or or maybe insecurity.
I think that's something we can all relate to,
Yeah.
on some level. But in Mark's case, he had a little help, right, from his brother.
Right, Dave's intervention.
Yeah.
It might seem a little manipulative on the surface, but it really did provide that push, that push that Mark needed. It's a fascinating example of how those outside influences, those external influences can sometimes be the trigger, for real internal growth.
It's like that saying, right? Sometimes you need a little fire under your feet to get moving, but even with that push, right? It's still Mark's choice ultimately to act.
Exactly. External factors, they might create the opportunity, but it's up to each person to seize it. And in this case, I wonder if maybe the setting of Comillas played a role as well.
I think so.
Well, think about the contrast, right?
Yeah.
Between the boat and the town square. The boat was so confined. It was this closed space filled with the potential for all those awkward encounters.
Yeah.
And it just amplified like all of Mark's shyness.
Yeah.
But the town square, it's open, it's relaxed, it just encourages people to interact and it creates this sense of freedom.
It's like the atmosphere itself is like giving him permission to be more confident.
Exactly. And then there's also the symbolism of the dance itself. It's not just, some random activity. It really represents a connection, right? Intimacy, a willingness to just let go.
It requires vulnerability, doesn't it? To move in sync with another person, to respond to their cues, to just express yourself, physically.
Exactly. And for Mark, who has been struggling with all that shyness and self-doubt, this is huge.
It's like all those pent-up emotions, all those missed chances, they're finally finding an outlet.
And notice how the story, it really highlights how everyone's aware of this moment. All their friends and family, they're watching, like they're holding their breath as Mark and Donna finally connect.
It's like this layer of communal support, like everyone's rooting for them to succeed.
It speaks to that human need for connection, right?
Yeah.
Not just on a romantic level, but within a social context as well.
So we've got this external push from Dave. We've got this supportive environment, and we've got this really symbolic act, this act of dancing. It all comes together, right, to create this pivotal moment, this moment of transformation for Mark.
And it highlights the way that internal and external factors, they interact to shape our lives. Sometimes you need a combination of both, to overcome those obstacles and really achieve personal growth.
It's a really powerful message, and I think it resonates with everyone on some level. But before we get too caught up in this heartwarming resolution, right? I want to shift our focus a little bit inward.
Ah, yes. The internal landscape. That's where things get really interesting.
Because as we've seen, relationships, they aren't just about chance encounters and those external nudges, right? It's about the fears, the insecurities, the hopes and the dreams that we all bring to the table.
And in Girl Meets Boy, we really see this, reflected in Donna and Mark. Donna, from the very beginning, she's so open to connection. She's drawn to Mark and she isn't afraid to express it.
She's proactive. Even when she makes that mistake with Dave, at the disco, she doesn't let it completely derail her. She keeps hoping for another chance.
Yeah, it speaks to her resilience, her optimism. She's not easily discouraged, and that inner strength. It's incredibly attractive, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And then there's Mark. He's battling his own demons, so to speak. That shyness we talked about. It's not just a quirk. It's really a reflection of his inner struggles. Those struggles with self-doubt.
And that's what makes this story so relatable for everyone listening. We've all been there. We've all had those moments where fear or insecurity has held us back.
Yeah.
From going after what we want.
Oh, absolutely. Whether it's, a potential romantic connection, a job opportunity, or even just speaking up for ourselves, right? That inner critic can be so powerful.
But what's crucial is how we respond to that voice. Do we let it control us? Or do we find ways to challenge it? In Mark's case, it took both, right? It took those external events and it took some internal growth to overcome his shyness.
It's like he needed that push from Dave, that spark of jealousy to really ignite his own sense of agency. And the setting of Comillas, that open and relaxed atmosphere, that probably helped as well. It's like the universe was conspiring to help him, break out of his shell.
Exactly. And that's such a great takeaway for all of us. Sometimes we do need that little help, right?
Yeah.
From outside forces to trigger that internal transformation. But ultimately, it's up to us to embrace that growth, to step outside our comfort zones and really take a chance.
And that's really the heart of the story, isn't it? It's about having the courage to be vulnerable, to overcome those fears and allow ourselves to connect with another human being. And sometimes that journey takes unexpected turns, right? With a little help from siblings and a well-timed dance in a Spanish town square.
Indeed. So dear listeners, as we start to wrap up our deep dive into Girl Meets Boy, I want to encourage you to think about your own internal landscape. You know, what are those fears? What are those insecurities that might be holding you back? And what are some steps you can take, even small ones, to challenge those voices, to create space for new possibilities?
Because as Donna and Mark's story shows us, sometimes all it takes is a little bit of courage, a dash of serendipity, and a whole lot of heart to find that connection we're all searching for. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. So we've been, talking about those external forces that brought Donna and Mark together in Girl Meets Boy. Things like the setting, Dave's intervention and all those initial missed connections.
But as we mentioned before, relationships, they aren't just about those external things. It's also about what we bring to the table, right? Internally. Our fears, our insecurities, our hopes and dreams, all that.
And that internal landscape, that's what we really want to dig into now, because it plays such a huge role in how we approach relationships and how we kind of navigate them.
Absolutely. Girl Meets Boy really does a great job of showcasing this through the characters. Take Donna, for instance. Right from the start, from the moment she sees Mark, she's open to the idea of a connection. She's drawn to him, and she's not afraid to show it. To express her interest.
She doesn't play games. She doesn't try to hide her feelings. She's very direct about it, and I think that's really refreshing.
Oh, I agree. And even when she makes that mistake with Dave at the disco, she doesn't let it completely derail her. She's resilient. She's got that optimism. She keeps hoping for another chance.
It speaks to her inner strength, doesn't it? And her belief that something good can happen.
Yeah. Exactly. And that kind of optimism, I think, is incredibly attractive in a potential partner, right?
Yeah.
It suggests a willingness to work through those challenges and a belief that things will work out in the end.
Then there's Mark. He's battling his own internal things, primarily his shyness.
And this is where I think things get really relatable for everyone listening. I mean, we've all been there.
Right.
We've all experienced that feeling of self-doubt, that inner voice that tells us we're not good enough or smart enough or brave enough.
It can be so paralyzing, especially, when you're trying to connect with someone that you're attracted to.
Oh, absolutely. It's important to remember that shyness, it's not just some, personality quirk. It often comes from deeper things.
Yeah.
Like insecurities or even past experiences.
So how do we overcome that inner critic, that voice that tells us to hold back all the time?
Well, as we saw with Mark, sometimes it takes a combination of things, like those external events and internal growth kind of working together. Dave's intervention, it provided that initial push, that spark of jealousy that kind of ignited Mark's sense of agency. You know what I mean?
Like he needed that external challenge almost to realize that he actually had the power to change the situation.
Exactly. And I think the setting of Comillas probably played a role too, right? That open and relaxed atmosphere, I think, made it easier for him to let go of some of those inhibitions, to step outside of his comfort zone a bit.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that our surroundings can have a huge impact on our behavior.
Oh, they really can. But ultimately, overcoming shyness or any other internal obstacle, it requires a conscious decision to challenge those negative thoughts and those beliefs that are holding you back. It's about developing that self-awareness, building your confidence, and practicing those social skills. That might feel a little uncomfortable at first.
Right. It's a process. It's not like a switch that you can just flip on. It takes effort and a willingness to be vulnerable.
Exactly. But the rewards are so worth it. When we overcome those internal barriers, we open ourselves up to so many possibilities, including those deeper, more meaningful connections with others.
And that's what Donna and Mark's story really highlights, right? It's about that courage to be vulnerable, to push past those fears, those insecurities, and to embrace the messiness of it all. The unpredictable but ultimately rewarding journey of human connection.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Girl Meets Boy, I encourage all of you listening to think about your own internal landscape. What are those fears and those insecurities that might be holding you back? And what steps can you take, even if they're small, to challenge those voices and create space for some new possibilities in your life?
Because sometimes all it takes is a little bit of courage, a little dash of serendipity, and a whole lot of heart to find that connection we're all searching for. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.